Hi, I'm Ken Moore, and this is Local Matters. Welcome to the show. And today, as you can see, I have with me Dr. Maryalice Russell, the superintendent of the McMinnville School District. I am delighted to be able to have the time to talk with her. And I know you and I have a lot of questions about the education of our children. It's a big subject, and it seems that it must be resting on your shoulders, Maryalice. How do you feel right now?
Well, hi, Ken. Thanks for having me. And no, actually, it's not resting on my shoulders at all. I think it's really on the shoulders of the full community. I think parents who have been playing a helpful role for their students at home. I think our teachers who are working around the clock to prepare quality lessons for students when they return in September. I think our administration who has been delving deeply into all the state guidance requirements, our maintenance team in terms of making sure the facilities are appropriate with proper physical distancing. It's a full team approach, and that team being not just the employees of McMinnville School District, but the full community.
Well, that team has been in place, and I guess if I was going to sing your praises, it would be for organizing and pulling that team together and having them work together as well as they do. Can you just, let's back up a few years and talk about the progress that McMinnville High School, the school district has made, the high school in particular, on graduation rates, and just the team's successes. And I think people would like to just have maybe a sketch of how that happened, how we're doing so well.
Well, I think historically the staff, and I mean all the teachers and the classified and the admin leadership group, they're constantly taking a look at what is it students are coming to in terms of their skills and needs, and what is it that we can provide to help the children advance to another level. And that requires assessing children on a regular basis. It requires taking a look at what the instructional standards are, making sure that we work collaboratively to provide the students those instructional targets and monitor their progress. We revise and adjust based upon a student's success or not. And in that modification, revisions moving forward, we're able to help students continue to gain. So we've really seen some great graduation rates at the high school. Our graduation rates exceed schools throughout the state. We're particularly pleased that our Latino population, our students who are our largest minority population, not only exceed state averages by a significant amount, but also even all of our student averages. So we're pleased with the progress. We know we have more to do, and we will embrace the next steps for our kids.
Well, Mary Alice, I picked out from you assess and revise, and let's just go to the success with Latino students. Can you give us an example of a program when you assessed and you revised? What was something you did around helping the success of Latino students?
So we have a ELD program or English language development program, and over the years that has modified, but one of the things we find is our students who participate and complete that program outperform all other students. And so we're really pleased with the components of instruction involved in that setting. And this is our students who come to us not speaking English as their native language, and if they actually complete our program, they exceed all other students in terms of their performance. So that's one of the things we're really pleased about.
What's the secret sauce of that program? I mean, other people are struggling with the same thing, and somehow you've had outstanding success.
I think it's our staff across the board, whether they are an ELD specialist who provide pull-out services for students, whether they're a classroom teacher wanting to reinforce those skills provided by the ELD, whether they're a parent in the community who's engaged and involved in our programs. It's a combination of those factors. One of the things that's kind of neat here in McMinnville is we started years ago HPAC, it's the Hispanic Parent Advisory Committee, and they've been very engaged in programs and opportunities for our Latino students. We also have the first Hispanic PTA in the state of Oregon, and that was formed probably 4 years ago, and could have been a little longer. I may be off on that, but we're seeing a lot of real parent leadership, and that can only support the efforts of their children.
Well, that sounds like kind of what I was looking for, some real imaginative thinking. And what I'm also hearing is perhaps an outstanding commitment of the staff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We as a team, all of the staff care deeply about the progress of our students, and that's across the board. And it's as it should be.
Well, let's back up to, I don't know, February, March, when all the pieces started coming apart. At least it looked that way to me, as far as education goes, and how that first hit, and your reaction, and then your assess, and your revision, and your success, and your revision, and your failure, and your revision. How did that march through? How did that go through March and April and May?
Well, March 13th, students were on site. We were teaching and they were learning. We were teaching and learning together. And March 16th, that following Monday, schools were not in session due to COVID-19, which parents know all too well. And of course, the community and state and actually the nation have been wrestling with this virus ever since, and the right things to do on behalf of children and our community. And then beginning March 16th, we began a variation of distance learning. And the reason I say a variation is because we followed the guidance from the Oregon Department of Education and Oregon Health Authority, which was at first to start in a very loose sort of supportive manner in the idea that students would be returning in not too distant future. Wow. And that morphed into kids will be out for the rest of the year. So let's see if we can pull individuals back to have this as a expectation for students to attend regularly. And yet with the guidance, there was not any ability to provide assessments for students, and grading was not to harm children. In other words, if they couldn't make contact through digital resources, they couldn't be harmed by not turning in work. And while all that was absolutely correct thing to do, it also shifted the mindset of many families and children about participating, that from some of their perspectives, it may not have been as meaningful as school as they knew it. So as we move forward into the fall, the expectation is that distance learning is school. And what we're trying to communicate to our families is we're in school, whether we're physically in the building or whether we're at home, but school is the constant. And so it will be back to what we have always focused on, which is teaching and learning. And sometimes it will be remote, and hopefully in the future, students will be returning to us. And that will be all based on the metrics that are health related, in terms of a safe ability for children to come back. And right now, the guidance is no more than 10 cases of COVID per 100,000 population within each county. And Yamhill County has been exceeding that for some time now. So that's the reason that we're looking at the distance learning. We're hopeful that by the end of the first quarter, we'll be able to have that opportunity for children to come back. That's usually November. Again, the virus will dictate when that safety is available.
So again, that metric was 10 cases per 100,000?
Yes.
And that allows a return to classroom in what way?
Well, each district would make their own decisions about how students would return. We're looking at kind of this sequence where students are in distance learning, they come back in a hybrid model, and then later they come back to full return. So a hybrid model would be students coming a couple days a week for face-to-face, and then they would be at home. And why is that? Let's say you had a class of 20 and there's still an expectation to keep students physically apart. In order to achieve that, we really don't want to see more than 10 students out of that class of 20 at a time. So in theory, half of those students would come as a group of 10 on a couple days a week, and the other half of those students would come a different day of the week.
Now, I wonder if you've seen a shift in students and maybe parents, Dr. Russell, in that school isn't there to do it to you like it used to be. There has to be there best be a shift to a student being hungry to learn, that it won't come automatically, and it's not just that thing that's done to you once you get to school. You actually have to seek it. You have to want it. Have you seen anything around that?
I think I'm hopeful of this. I mean, I know the proof will be in the pudding when we actually resume, but I actually think the students, for the most part, miss school. I think they want to be engaged with their classmates and want to be engaged with their teachers. And I actually think many may be looking forward to it. While they would prefer being physically present in brick and mortar, I think they're actually looking forward to this engaged learning opportunity with their teachers. So I'm hopeful that we will see that. And our goal is where we're failing, where a child may not engage, how can we go about addressing that, getting him or her to become a participant, and working with the family to make that occur. So I'm optimistic that students are ready to do school as they know it, other than just being at home versus being in the facility itself.
And do you have any programs to help students that may not have the technical skills, or the technology, the network, they don't have internet, or Chromebooks being supplied? How is that working?
So lots of things, and thanks for asking, Ken. First of all, the routine things are, we did check out Chromebooks to students last spring. We allowed them to keep those Chromebooks over the summer. If they're new to us or they were an individual who returned their Chromebook instead of keeping it, we'll be having checkout days for that again later this month. In addition to that, we're going to be putting together some parent training opportunities. So for those households that maybe have difficulty helping the youngest learners, we're going to actually do some socially distanced on-site learning opportunities for parents who are going to be able to support their children. We're going to offer that same training to anyone who may be a daycare provider who might be seeing children during those hours of schooling rather than the child being home with their parent, to help them access that information. Additionally, we are putting together hands-on kits that we would like to send home to our youngest families as well. So when the teacher is online, such as this, they can ask the students to pull out certain manipulatives from their box or certain kinds of other items that the teacher can then walk them through. So we think some of those activities will help. One of the things that was a great model for us in the past, we do Ready for Kindergarten program for parents of children age 1, 2, 3, and 4. You know, this is a readiness thing prior to them coming to kindergarten. And we think that's a great model for preparing parents to be those supports at home. And so some of those strategies we'll be implementing as well.
Just going to that, the preparing of students to come to school and the parents, perhaps could it even be easier to get parents to participate so they don't have to get in the car and drive and find babysitters, and you may even have an opportunity to reach maybe some people that you wouldn't reach before. Of course, there are new barriers there, but I'm just hopeful that that program can find more success.
So, you know, I often think about, you know, each problem dictates the need to come up with a solution. And then every solution comes with its own set of new problems, right? Mm. So a problem is COVID, and how do we teach children at a distance? So you invest in technology. Now the new problem is, how do we make sure parents can access that technology, you know, for their children and have the skill sets to do that? And yet there are sometimes those unintended positives that come out of the problem, even aside from the new solutions, which are, I think it gave us more of this kind of time with many families to communicate with moms and dads or guardians of children, to actually have some conversations like this where someone doesn't have to get in the car and come to the school, or schedule a meeting, you know, 2 weeks out. And so that has been a nice benefit, I think, to some of this remote digital access between families. And I can only expect that more of that will occur. I will mention that we do know in our community there are some issues of connectivity, and we are working with providers to make sure that these families that are in some of these remote locations can have access. We're also making sure that our facilities have Wi-Fi access from outside the building, should a parent wish to pull up in their car and be able to access Wi-Fi that way. And we are also creating in every school an opportunity for a couple rooms available for checkout for a couple hours a day. If absolutely, after all of our efforts and remote location of the family's household and contracts with the various providers in town, they're still unable to access, they may sign up to use a room a couple hours a day. So those are a variety of strategies that we're putting in place to make sure there's access to the digital resources.
Wow, that sounds pretty comprehensive. I'm glad to hear that there are so many options, even to coming into a socially distanced situation at the school when absolutely necessary. That really hits the bottom line of making available. Hopefully there won't be too many children in that.
I hope, you know, we've provided hotspots, you know, which is also internet connectivity for people who don't have that in their home.
Yes.
We want every child to be able to connect independently. What I mean by that is, if there are 2 or 3 children in a family, we don't think one child should have to wait their turn for the next child. So that would be 3 Chromebooks and, if necessary, additional hotspots, depending on the household.
Wow, that's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. Dr. Russell, I'm really curious about how this looks for, let's just break it up into 3 pieces, elementary school, middle school, high school, how a day looks for, let's just start in elementary school. What's a day like for a student? What's a day like for a teacher?
Well, we're suggesting to our families that there be a definite start time to the day. And whether I be at elementary, middle, or high school, the day starts at a certain time. And we do have schedules we're going to be posting very soon. I just don't have those available for you here today. But in essence, students would get up. We'd suggest that the parent have a breakfast time, because remember, when students come to school, we provide breakfast as well, and we incorporate that into our schedule. We ask them to, depending again on the level, to review their materials from the day before so that they're ready for the upcoming lesson. And then there will be a combination of what we call asynchronous and synchronous lessons for the student over the course of the day. So synchronous means in real time. So just like you and I are talking today, there might be a time that the student is with a larger group. It might be a time where the student is with a small group. It might be a time that the student is individualized, as you and I are, but we're in real time. So that would be a synchronous experience. Asynchronous experience would be those things that a teacher creates ahead of time and posts on the website. And we have a student website that students go into, and they access their, what we call Google Classroom. And so all the materials from that teacher are in their Google Classroom. So like when they're at school, they walk into room 12. But here they're going to walk into classroom by the name of the last teacher in their Google Classroom and access their materials. So there might be independent work assignments. There might be a video to watch and then to write about what they learned in that video. It may be additional messages that the teacher has posted, things that they want you to practice. And so that would be that independent time. And that gives some combination of flexibility. And so while the schedule says, you know, about 2 o'clock, we want you to do this, or 3 o'clock this, if the family household has trouble accessing because mom wants to be there to support, or dad does and they work, then those asynchronous activities could be done at, excuse me, at a different time of the day. So that mixture of things will be throughout the levels, elementary, middle, and high school.
Elementary school, a total of asynchronous and synchronous learning. How many hours would that be for an average day for a student?
Well, they're looking at about 50% in the guidance, that 50% of the time be in teacher-facilitated learning, and teacher-facilitated learning is a combination of asynchronous and synchronous. The average student's day is about 5.5 hours, so about half of that. And there is in the guidance by grade level, which I can't specifically recite to you without having that in front of me, you know, a minimum number of minutes, elementary, middle, and high, but generally think about teacher facilitated or led activities for about 50% of the student's day.
All right, well, that is really answering my question. So would a elementary, a middle school, or a high school student maybe for half of that time of that 50% of a school day be synchronous? Maybe so 25% of the time they're synchronous, 25% of the time they're asynchronous. Is that an estimate?
It could be, yeah, depending upon the grade level and depending upon the student. You know, the older students are going to have more ability to sustain this sort of communication for a long period of time than, say, a kindergarten student would have. Mm-hmm. And so again, there's going to be an age relevancy here to all of the instruction delivered.
So an elementary student might see a screen with their class on it, on the screen.
They could, but yes, they certainly could, and that is a possibility. We do find that the younger children do well in smaller groups, and so there may be multiple smaller groups that teacher determines they will provide. But yes, they also could be on screen, you know, with their full classroom.
Okay, so now from the teacher's end, that means that they'll be doing the same lesson. If they had 30 students and you want to have 6, they'd have to do that same lesson 5 times.
Well, we've reduced the class sizes in total with the anticipation that students will come back. Because remember, when they come back, we want them to be able to work half the students at any given time. But also within the physical location, there's a 35 square foot distance requirement for each person in the classroom. And then within that, 6 foot apart. And so we need to keep the groupings, or cohorts, as we would say, small. And then on top of that, remember the asynchronous lessons, those that are recorded, those are just done once, and you can have multiple groups review those as they need to.
So a high school student may see 30 kids on a screen, but you said, that was a logistical question. How are you reducing class sizes without hiring a bunch more teachers? It seems like the teachers are already spread out more than they were before.
Yeah, well, remember that when they come back at a 50% mark, if I had 30 in a class, I would see no more than 50 at a given time. At the high school level, for example, also during the brick and mortar school year, in a semester, I might be teaching 8 classes of students. So 8 classes times 30 or whatever that class size might happen to be. But in this modification where we're teaching the students in a distance learning mode, we're only going to teach 4 classes per quarter. So now the teacher would have 4 classes of students that they would see this way, or when we return in the hybrid model, 4 classes as opposed to the 8. And so that also allows us to keep the total number of students per teacher smaller at a given time. And so then at the end of the 9 weeks, the students would change to their other 4 classes, which, remember, in the brick and mortar, it was 8 classes all semester. So now it's going to be 4 classes first 9 weeks, 4 classes next 9 weeks. So all of that will help.
I get it. Now, that has been quite a process to develop that, I would imagine. And you haven't had the summer off. And what have you been doing for fun, Maryalice? Do you watch a Netflix series? What books are you reading? What do you do?
Yeah, well, it has been very different. And, one would think that with the students gone at summer, that there'd be a lot of leisure time. And I'm afraid at this point in time, it's one of the busiest summers I've had and many of our staff had in order to prepare this plan for students. So I can't say I've had a ton on the fun quotient. I will look forward to that probably in January, when I'm hoping we see some relief on the virus for everybody. So yeah, just hanging in there, doing the work, paying attention to the guidance. Unfortunately, having a little bit too much chocolate along the way. But other than that, working pretty hard right now, as are many, in order to prepare for the fall.
Wow, wow. Now, I want to just hit one thing. I can't believe the time has gone so fast, Maryalice. It's Dr. Russell, it's always been amazing talking to you. Well, I want to bring up a tough subject, money. Oh my gosh, the budget. How is that working with reduced income and are you saving money by not having kids at school so there's no problem? Or where is the money? Well, now where is the money needing to go? Imagine Chromebooks aren't cheap, but just give me an overview of the budget.
One of the things last spring that happened is when we were in the modified distance learning component, is we really did not hire a lot of substitutes. So since we were off-site, there were not a lot of times that subs came in, so we did have some savings in that area. However, we've had a ton of new costs, and those new costs are things like, face masks that we're making sure that we outfit for every student and every staff member, like shields that we're making sure we have available in the building for all staff members upon their return. And even for our K-2 kids, we have some cute ones with little bears and lions on them when they return to school, because as you know, mask or shield wearing is now required for all students. I don't have them with me, but we've obviously purchased a lot of plastic or plexiglass barriers, a lot of new cleaning equipment, 6-foot social physical distancing signs, as you might see in the grocery store or things of that nature. We've spent a considerable amount of money in our elementary buildings. We have been, over the summer, moving out half of the furniture out of every classroom into storage, as well as excess bookshelves and excess materials in order to keep the cleaning once students return and keep the cleaning to a minimum. So there's just been a number of expenses associated with the new way of doing school. For example, adding to all the laptops a camera, such as the one I have, or not laptops, desktops, such as the one I have on this desktop. Should a teacher wish to teach from their classroom and use the camera on their desktop, which we did not have. We do have cameras on our Chromebooks, which teachers used last spring and certainly can continue to use this spring. But a number of expenses such as that moving forward. So then what does that mean for budget? Well, the legislature just did a correction so that we will get the $9 billion appropriation for schools that was part of this biennium. So to that end, we're pleased that the second year of the biennium will be funded correctly, or as we were anticipating, as well as Measure 98. But those don't account for these new costs, but at least it's not a shortfall. They are reducing the money available for the Student Investment Act, and so we will not be able to purchase all the new supports for children that we were hoping to do. My real worry is the year after this, year 21-22, as we move into the recession, or we're anticipating moving into the recession, and we're anticipating some large economic hits to the state school fund. So while we don't have new money and there are new expenses, at least we don't have on top of that devastating reductions as we were fearful of earlier. I do have great concerns for us financially into the school year after this. But we'll deal with that then. And right now, the most important thing is to work on getting quality education out there for our students and having them return when we can, and making sure that, most importantly, everybody stays safe. And Ken, if I could mention this, all politics aside, it's really important that we keep our children and our community safe and keep the virus down as much as we can. And so I can only ask as a community, if we, prioritize getting our children in schools as soon as possible, let's wear the mask, let's be physically distanced, let's do the hand washing. All these things are critically important if we're likely to get our children back. And I think, as I said earlier, most of them want to be back, and certainly we want them all back. So I think as a community, we can embrace this notion of keeping each other and ourselves safe from the virus. And if we can do that, I think we'll have a winning plan for our kids in the not too distant future.
Well, thank you, Dr. Russell. So what I'm hearing there is, if we can get down below 10 cases per 100,000, that it will be good for the children.
Absolutely. Be good for all of us, right?
Yes. In addition to grandma and grandpa keeping them not sick, but getting the kids back in school, I think that should be enough motivation. I am right along with you, encouraging people to do that. Well, I know that praying folks pray for you, Maryalice. I send you my respect, my love, my best wishes for you to continue to lead this team, this amazing team, in this amazing time.
Thank you, Ken. We can do it together. All of us can do it together on behalf of our kids. So thank you so much.
And thank you.